Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to talk to you about my new Natasha Denona Triochrome palette that I picked up, as well as some October faves and fails. But first, make sure that you're subscribed. As usual, the details are linked below. I will also be talking about some of the new releases I picked up, like the Bat McGrath that I've been showcasing for a while. But first, let's talk about the new Natasha Denona Triochrome palette. I'll be comparing it to the Sydney Grace, as well as the swatches that were initially shown from another Instagrammer, and I will be giving you guys my final thoughts on this palette. So far it's pretty much what I expected it to be. It's very expensive for the type of shades that you're getting. So we'll be looking at all of those in great detail today, as well as really if it's worth spending that $129 for it. So what I would like to do is I wanted to compare it to a real Triochrome palette, which is what probably any of my Terramoons or my Sydney Grace palettes, and I'm looking at that together. But real quick on Prime swatches, really fast, it's nothing extraordinary. It's just like how I expected it to be. Like the colors do show up on the skin, but there's nothing like substantial here that is just groundbreaking. That's why I feel like it's a little bit disappointing for the amount that you're paying. Now I know some of you might say, well, you didn't swatch it hard enough, or you didn't press hard enough, and I'm here to say that, you know what, if you take an indie brand like Terramoons watch, I applied the same amount of pressure, and that stuff is just pigmented beyond belief compared to these Natasha Denona palette. The Terramoons, the Sydney Grace, especially the Terramoons, are just so much better quality, and that's why I think that this Natasha Denona palette will eventually go on sale for $65, just like the Tropic. But yeah, she has got nothing on those indie brands so far. I mean, indie brands are really killing it compared to this Natasha Denona Triochrome palette. I'm not saying it's like terrible quality, but when you swatch them side by side with Sydney Grace and Terramoons, the Terramoons ones just like blow this one out of the park. Now I know for every single Terramoons shade it's about like $17 per pack. This one's slightly less if you do the math. You are getting what you're paying for with Terramoons and with Sydney Grace, and I just love having those palettes. I actually went ahead and put all my iridescent Terramoons in one place, in one palette. I kind of used one of my old Ofra palettes and depotted them and put them in a rainbow order, so I have Red Giant in the beginning. I've seen a lot of YouTubers randomly throw them in a magnetic pan. I don't like them being disorganized, and I prefer to have them in one place. And just everything about these indie brands and the Terramoons especially, I'm really in love with, and I do like a lot more. And I think you're getting a better value for your money if you invest in an indie brand. The quality doesn't really show as well on camera, but the quality is outstanding. And you know, on this channel I don't really praise a lot of brands, and this one I'm willing to make an exception. Of course, you are paying a lot more, and you are going to wait for like a month for, you know, pre-orders to ship out, so that's something to keep in mind. But back to the Natasha Denona palette, I still don't think that it's worth that $129 for the colors that you're getting, because it's not an everyday palette. And compared to a lot of indie brands, even Sydney Grace, you guys can see Sydney Grace here, they are so much more better quality. And the Sydney Grace Mel Thompson palette was like only $55 if I'm not mistaken, and you're getting basically the same color story as this, and the outside packaging does have a nice flip to it, which I do like that about it, so I have to give them that. Now if someone were to ask me to rank my Natasha Denona palettes of 2020 altogether, I would probably start by elimination, and the number one palette that I would probably eliminate was the most recent purchase, which is the Zendo palette. That palette was slightly disappointing because it was repetitive and it was easily a cash grab from the brand. The Glam palette I have basically reached out for 0 times since I picked it up. Unfortunately, it didn't have the appeal of the Sultry palette or any of her other colorful palettes. It's just not a palette that I'm excited for. I know I got it for everyday use, but I don't really get as much use out of it, so I'm probably going to rank it at the bottom. Now, on the other hand, the Love palette I actually do get a lot of use out of, and I do like the purpley tones in there. The liquid chromium eyeshadows were a favorite. I did like them. I know they have a very short expiration, so mine's already got like 3 months left to expire. Some of you might remember my earlier video about these multi-chrome eyeshadows. I actually did really like them and enjoy them. I just thought that for the price range, they were pretty steep. So if you're looking to get them for cheaper, I think right now on her website, they're 25% off. So moving on to this new Triochrome palette, if I had to rank it with the other 2020 releases of hers, I probably rank it right where the Love palette is. I think I'd probably say it's slightly worse than the Love palette. You can't beat that $65 value there. Now moving towards number 2 spot would probably be the Retro palette because it's so versatile and it's so flattering, and I'd say my number 1 is either the Bronze or the Retro palette, and then probably the Trichromes. So let's quickly compare her side by side with Sydney Grace. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I don't get anything in PR and I buy all my palettes so I could give you an unbiased review. I personally do not know Mel Thompson, or do I personally have a relationship with Sydney Grace, but I'm just saying, for the $55 price tag that they're asking for, it seems to be on par with the $129 palette from Natasha Denona, and what's actually more superior than both of them is probably the Terramoons, not just because they're asking for $17 per pan, but because actually they have a better formula product. And I think that if Terramoons had the type of marketing that Natasha Denona has, for example, they could definitely be making a lot more money. And I know that Terramoons is a one woman, one company situation, so she probably has to expand a lot more to be able to get that kind of recognition that Natasha Denona has. And I would say at $17, they're probably the most expensive eyeshadows that I've ever owned and probably will own, but they're so worth it, and I highly recommend them to you guys. But my final verdict on the Natasha Denona palette is don't even bother with the VIB sale. Probably get it at her own website for 25% off. I wish that it was a fully Triochrome palette, like everything being multi-chrome. Unfortunately, it's not. It's only 3 shades, and there's a lot yet left to be desired. I don't think it'll do well with large audiences as far as the sale, so I predict that it will eventually get marked down. And that's all I got to say about that for now. So other things I picked up were the Ulta Harry Potter sets. These were really popular. They sold out right away after, I want to say like the day after I ordered them. If you refresh the Ulta website, they were completely gone, and they sold for about $28, but some people on third-party websites like Poshmark and eBay were selling them up to $100. Do I think this is worth $100? Absolutely not. Do I think it's worth $28? Still no. I think these are really gimmicky and really meant for, I don't know who they're meant for. I guess they're meant for Harry Potter collectors. I feel that it's a little bit of a waste of time for a true makeup lover. I'm just going to say real quick, I don't think you should buy these even from a third-party seller. Now, the eyeliners, however, that was the main selling point for a lot of people. They look good, but they don't really perform very well. They were totally gimmicky, and they kind of remind me of the Storybook Cosmetics Feather and Quill liner. It's just really a gimmick, and the quality is not that great. So again, I don't recommend you getting this from a scalper online. But if somehow Ulta were to restock and you really knew someone who was obsessed with Harry Potter, then between the 4 different colors, I think the blue is probably my least favorite as far as the quality of the eyeliner. I felt like it was patchy. My favorite was probably the Slithering Green, just because it was, the formula seemed to be a little bit more consistent. The gold one I already showed you guys, it didn't really perform so well. The problem with the blue one was that the color was too dark at some point, and I don't think these are designed for makeup artists. I think they're mostly for kids who are into Harry Potter. So again, I wouldn't recommend any of these liners for personal use. Alright, another palette that I picked up was the Makeup Revolution. It's called the Maxi Reloaded Earth Shadow, and it's only exclusive to Ulta Beauty. online. Now I like how they copied Huda's marbleized look, but unfortunately the pigmentation is just very lackluster. And if you just got spoiled like I did with these indie brands like Terramoons, got a Natasha Denona palette, you can see how in comparison these are very lackluster and almost looks like I don't even know what I'm working with here. It's not really, it doesn't look like it's eyeshadow. It looks like just some chalky pigment that doesn't really have any true pop of color in comparison to high quality brands. So for $25, I think it's too expensive to get bad quality. So speaking of bad quality, I decided to round up 5 or 6 palettes that I thought were not that impressive compared to what I already had in my collection. And Warrior 3 was one of them. It just felt like very chalky. Didn't really care for it. I know the prices are good for Juvia's Place, and generally I do like Juvia's Place. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these palettes in particular, just that I wasn't super impressed with them, because now that we have all these like beautiful multi-chrome palettes and palettes with a pop of shimmer in it, it's really kind of a waste to pick up palettes that are mediocre. And for example, this Lime Crime Prelude palette, I'm fast forwarding this video so you guys just know that these are palettes that I don't really care for. Or like BH Cosmetics Cotton Candy, again, these are just mediocre palettes that in comparison to something that you can really spend your money on to get something of good quality, I wouldn't recommend any of these. Anyway, let me know in the comment section below which one of these palettes did you really enjoy? Do you think it's worth spending on an indie brand? And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.